Well, today's episode's going to be a little different. Originally, I wasn't planning on it, but I decided, what the heck. So, almost all the reviews I'll be doing is coming from Stardom. As you know, we got the Goddess of Stardom Tag League from day 5 and day 6 from November 12th and the 13th. But also, we got Gold Rush, where we have about maybe three championship matches, and of course the semifinals of the Moneyball tournament, which is kind of exciting. And of course, we cannot forget the recent event that took place. I'm talking about the historic crossover between New Japan and Stardom. I'm kind of excited for that because we're going to see the interaction between two promotions that they never interacted before. But also, finally, we're instead of having the news updates, some interesting developments just occurred with, of course, Unagi Sayaka in her involvement in Sendai Girls, but also some interesting moves that she made. We'll be talking about that on the Unagi Sayaka Watch. So, let's get ready for another episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Welcome everybody to Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things as pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, Gerard here. So, as I mentioned before, we're going to talk a lot about reviews with Stardom. Let's start with day 5 of Stardom's Goddesses of Stardom Tag League with day 5 on the 12th. Now, they're in Yamagata, from my understanding. It opened up with the Blue Goddesses block. We have Wingori, consistent of Hanan and Saya Ida, taking on Himai, which is Himika and Maika from DDM. This was a very interesting matchup. Now, however, this is you got Himai are in fact two of the powerhouses in, of course, in DDM, but you only have one who's the shortest, but she's the strongest. I'm talking about Saya Ida, but that did not do any well for anybody because apparently Ida ended up on the wrong side of a power bomb by Himika. So that leaves, of course, Wingori with no points whatsoever. But, however, Himai actually ended up with in the total of 2 points with 2 wins so far. Now, our next match we have BMI 2000, Ruka and Atsuko Tora, consistent of course, they're members of Oda Tai, taking on Queen Quest members 02 line, consistent of Miyu, Amasaki, and Azumi. Now, we all know how these guys work. They are very dirty, very classic. They like to ensure they find a way to wear out their opponents before the start of the bell. And I think that shows us a lot of things about them. They did use a little pipe, but however, it was the Swanton bomb by Natsuko Tora onto Amasaki that allowed her to win. And currently, right now, are in this particular day, they gained 2 more points with the total of 6. Now, there's those that are talking maybe they could be one of the heavy favorites to win God's tally. So we'll see about that. As for Two Line, they only have 2 points, so we'll see how they're gonna go. Next up, we have Waka Wild, consistent of Waka Tsukiyama and Saki, taking on the new eras, Mirai and Ami Soya. Now, keep in mind, Waka came in as a pinch hitter after Mina Shirakawa ended up injured back in early November. So I thought this was a very interesting matchup, but however, as always, Waka ends up being the one to get the fall, but she suffered in the fate of none other than the Myanmar Shock by Mirai, giving them the win. So as far as we know, um, Kawal only has 2 points thanks to me. That was in a DQ match. But as for New Eras, they only have 3 points. They have the draw, the one with the draw they had. Don't remember with who, but they gained this one, so they got 3 points in this one. Next match is the Red Goddess Goddess block. We have My Fair Lady, consisted of Lady C and Mai Sakurai, which is the unusual duo due to the fact that they're from two different units, taking on for the first time Peach Rocks. Now, there have been many occasions we haven't seen Peach Rocks perform due to other things. Momo Kogo ended up sick, but she's back. I thought it was a pretty good matchup, but it was, of course, Mayu who picked up the win with the Donda Pai on Lady C to pick up the win. This is their first 2 points, but as for My Fair Lady, they only still ended up with 0 points. Now we go to a non goddess tag league match. We have FWC Koguma and Azuki taking on Meltier, Natsupoi, and Tam Nakano, our current tag team champions. Also versus is the Karate Brave, Tomoka Inaba, and Sudi. This was a very interesting matchup because there were different variables about this one. But one thing that was funny, don't ever try to get danced by Koguma. She already did that with Natsupoi. They tried to get that with Tomoka Inaba, but Inaba's like, nope, F that. I'm not doing that. It didn't work, but I think they did show a little bit of the strength with her, what she can do. She's like a very much serious type wrestler, but unfortunately, that did not do anyone good because the match ended in a time limit draw with 15 minutes. So that kind of sucks, but that's how it works. Now, back into the Goddess Tag League matches. This is the red block. We have We Love Tokyo Sports, Fukigen Death, and Saki Kashima taking on Mafia Bella, Tekla, and Julia. This was a very interesting matchup because, before the bell ring, we see Tokyo Love Tokyo Sports. They actually like to attack their opponents by using newspapers, but in this way, it did not result. It fell into favor with Mafia Bella. With Saki Kashima ended up on the wrong side of the Stealth Viper by Julia, giving them 2 points. So right now they have in this one total of 6 points, and as for We Love Tokyo Sports, only 2. So they could be another team that we should be paying attention. That could win Goddess Tag League. So we'll see when we get there because this is not the first time they have tried to precede these belts. Now, our final match of this day, it was more again of the red block. We have Black Desire, Starlight Kid, and Momo Watanabe taking on Aphrodite, Utami Hayashida, and Saida. As you know, this is a very interesting matchup. So I think this is a pretty good one. But however, it was Utami Ayashida with the hijack bomb that allowed them to win the match when they put Momo Watanabe out, and it was a pretty good one. However, Aphrodite did say that things would change. They seem confident that they will determine to win the tag titles. Now, the reason I say that is because Utami Ayashida did pin Tam Nakano in the much recent event with the 5-star Grand Prix. She seems like she's targeting to dethrone her from that belt. So we'll see what happens then. So I think they have Black Desire still has 0 points, I believe, and as for Aphrodite, only 4. So we'll see how far we're gonna go. So I think that's it for now for this one. So let's move on to day 6 on the November 13th. Okay, day 6 of Goddesses of Stardom Tag League. This was on the 13th of November in Sendai. Opened up with the Red Goddess block, but this one was a very interesting opener. It was supposed to be Black Desire versus Meltier. This is not the first time these guys have confronted each other, but however, Black Desire, as you know, being Odatai who they are, they decide to prevent Meltier from doing their little entrance theme. So they dragged them out by beating the crap out of them. Now, you probably would have assumed that somehow they would have won, but if you've seen the story with Meltier, they show how much their love and bond gives them strength in order to keep on forward. So no matter what Black Desire tried, it wasn't going to work for them. But I thought it was a pretty good one until Tam not going to put Starlight Kid in the violet screwdriver in order to win the match. Now you can tell by this match that this is not over between them. Now this match was the last time they would confront them until they get into that mixed tag match in the historic crossover. So that's going to be something we will talk about. And I believe right now for the point system on this one, Meltier only has 4 points with two wins, and I believe they have one loss, in my opinion. Black Desire, I made a mistake. They do have a point, only one due to a draw. So that's how it ends up with them. Now we jump to it. The blue goddess block. We have Waka Wild, Waka and Saki taking on Wingori. This would have been a very interesting matchup because, as you know, uh, Hanan always has some great respect for Waka, despite the fact that Waka hasn't picked up her first win yet. And I thought it was pretty good, but it was the backdrop driver by Hanan that picked up the win on Waka and gave them their first points in this one. So I don't forgot how many losses they have. So they have 2 points. Waka Wild still has two. Next up, we go back to the Red Goddess block. We have My Fair Lady, Lady C, and Mai Sakurai taking on Aphrodite, Utami Ashida, and Sayeda. Now, keep in mind, this particular day was in fact a special one because Aphrodite has two matches, and this is just one right here. So it was a pretty interesting match. Now, Lady C is not afraid to challenge against her seniors. Keep in mind, as I mentioned, Aphrodite are members of Queen's Quest, and so is Lady C. So Lady C doesn't mind challenging her seniors, even though they have watched her grown up since she joined the group early this year. Um, but it was, of course, the Star Crusher that finished off Lady C by Sayakami Tani. Now, the general constitution is now, as you know, I mentioned before with Sayakami Tani, is her mental state in the right place due to the fact that after what happened at November 3rd at the Hiroshima Goddess Festival, are we often going to see her do the Phoenix Splash? Well, that's yet to be seen, but looks more like she is not trying to jump in that because I know many fans have been talking about this, but that's another conversation for another time. Now we go back to the Red Goddess block. This time no, never mind. We have two non tag league matches. The first one is Mafia Bella, Tekla, and Julia taking on O2 consistent of Miyu Imisaki and Azumi. Now, Imisaki and Julia have some bit of a history. Before Imisaki ever debuted on Stardom, she was still training at the dojo. Julia had a first-hand training sessions with her before she came back. Now, if you guys remember last year, Julia was in fact injured. So during her time away from in-ring action, she's been helping out with the dojo, and Miyu Amasaki is one of them who she trained. And I think this is where now she's putting herself to the test. Now that, as you know, last time they confronted each other was at New Blood 3, I believe. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, I think it was 3. But that's how it ended with Julia winning. But once again, the same old history begins. Julia wins against, this time with Amasaki when she applied Bianca, and now it's right there over. Now our next match is a three-way tag match. We have FWC Koguma Azuki versus the New Eras Mirai and Amisuri versus Karate Brave, consistent of Tomoka Inaba and Suri. Now keep in mind, New Eras and Karate Brave, there are in fact part of the of God's Eye. So that's kind of an unfair advantage, but God's Eye are not afraid either to challenge each other, regardless of the same status that they're in together. But I thought it was another interesting matchup, but recently we have been seeing these type of matches end in time limit draws. So this one is also in that same category. So we'll see how that goes out. Now, we go back to the Red Goddess block. We have Peach Rock, Momo Kogo, and Mayu Iwatani taking on Aphrodite again. Back is this one was another interesting matchup to see because from the way I see it, it seems like Aphrodite could be one of those other favorite wrestlers to win the entire block. So we will see when that day happens. But it was, of course, Utami Ayashida with the German suplex onto Momokogo that picked up the win. So right now they are in the top with 8 points. As for Peach Rock, they only have 2. Now our main event, we have from the Blue Goddess block, we have BMI 2000 Ruka and Natsuko Tora taking on Himika and Maika Himai. I thought this was a very curious match for me because I mentioned this before. BMI 2000 are members of Odatai. They like to cheat, they like to attack their opponents, but for some odd reason, I didn't see that today with this one. So it was very calm. It looks more like Natsuko Tora to me has some sort of vengeance against them. Last year, I remember um, Natsuko Tora seems was trying to get Micah to join, but we'll see about that. But it was a pretty good match, very powerhouse type in my opinion. But it took a swanton bomb onto Himika by Natsuko Tora to pick up the win. So they currently BMI 2000 currently has 8 points. As for Himai, they only have 4. So we don't know if they'll catch up. But it seems like BMI 2000 could be another group favorite to win as well. So right now, in my opinion, there's Mafia Bella and Aphrodite, and of course BMI 2000, who I think could most likely get to the finals. But we'll find out from here on out. And I believe we should end it right here and move on with Gold Rush. Okay, Stardom's latest pay per view, Gold Rush 2022. This one was on the 19th in Osaka. So it opened up with the high speed championship between Momoka Hanazono versus Azumi. Now, this particular match was uh, the challenge was laid out by Hanazono to Azumi back in New Blood 4. Hanazono, as you know, she's good friends with Mei Shiruga. She was impressed by that match, and she thought maybe we could see that match take place. But however, um, the only reason this match took place now instead of earlier, I did mention before about Momoka Hanazono. She only accepts bookings in Osaka, which is kind of strange in certain aspects. I know some of you have commented on this before that Momoka should be out there exposing more of herself, giving her more exposure for us to get to know her. I mean, that's who she is. I don't know what's the purpose of her trying to just only accept bookings in Osaka. I know she has appeared in Oz Academy, Collega Pro Wrestling, anywhere. Oh yeah, and I think that's pretty much where I've been seeing her. But yeah, so but the match, it was okay. It was pretty good. I think this is nothing compared like we've seen with Mei Shiruga because you guys know this. Hanazono's good friends with Mei Shiruga, and I don't know exactly what Azumi would have thought. I mean, as you know, um, Momoka has these unorthodox ways, but in this particular match, it took at least a couple of times for various reversals for the Azumi Sushi for Azumi to apply it, and she picked up the win. She even mentioned in the backstage that she would like to team up with Momoka Nazono. I'm like, that's interesting. So we'll see how that goes. Now, our next 2 matches are the semifinals of the Moneyball tournament. First match, we have DDM consistent of Mai Sakurai, Tekla, and Julia taking on Cosmic Angels, Waka Tsukiyama, Natsupoi, and Tam Nakano. Now, you probably would have thought this was going to be a little interesting. However, we seen how they do their dance. This time, Waka did not do that. What she did is that she was on top of the ring ropes, clapping her hands, giving support while everybody else were doing the same thing. But in ring wise, it was a very. I kind of figured this match was going to fall into favor of DDM in every aspect. It was Maya Sakurai who picked up the win by applying the diving elbow drop onto Waka to pick up the win and move on to the finals. Now, whoever wins the next match will go to the finals. It's between Godseye, consistent of Tomoka Inaba, Mirai, and Amisori, taking on Stars, consistent of Koguma, Azuki, and Mayu Iwatani. Now, this was also another good match. I think last year, Stars were involved in this whole money thing last year, but they were able to pick up the win thanks to Azuki with the Azuki Straw onto Amisori to pick up the win. So this was a disappointing loss for God's Eye, but we'll see how that goes. Now, we got some matches consistent of Tag League involved in this particular day. We have the Goddess of Tag League for the red block. We have We Love Tokyo Sports, Fukigen Def and Saki Kashima, taking on their friends in Odatai, Black Desire, Starlight Kid, and Momo Watanabe. This was going to be a very interesting matchup because they're Odatai. They'll cheat their way through. That's how they play out. But it was the Black Tiger leg killer by what's her name, by Starlight Kid to finish off Saki Kashima, forcing her to tap out. So they currently right now, Black Desire gained 2 points. They have total of 3. As for We Love Tokyo Sports, only 2. Now we got the Blue Goddess block taking place as well. We got 7 Up, consistent of Yu and Nanane Takahashi taking on Himai, consistent of Himeka and Maika. I thought this match was also another powerhouse type maneuver. Now, none of the usual tricks would work with Himai because, as you know, that's what they normally do. We've seen Himeka with the running power bomb. That wasn't going to be the case. Maika couldn't do the Takumi Chinuku driver, but she was able to pick up the win onto Nanane Takahashi when she applied the jackknife, allowing them to pick up the next win. And I believe they have 6 points with 6 points. And as for Nanane Takahashi, 7 Up, they only have 3 with a draw and a win. So that's pretty much what we've been hearing. Now our next match is the Wonder of Stardom Championship, the white belt, Kairi versus Sai Kamitani. Now this was a very interesting setup. Now, nobody predicted this was going to happen due to the fact after this match was sort of nominated by Kamitani after the horrific accident that took place on November 3rd. But I think this was a very good match. I have to say it was really good. It did showed a concerns by Kamitani to apply the to apply. She was We don't know if she was intending to use the Phoenix Splash after what happened last time. So that kind of played in that mindset. But she did have the look of desperation due to the fact that she did not want to lose these titles because her only goals right now is to beat to break the most defense records, which is 13, and I think that's the real reason why. But Kairi, as you know, she has been white belt champion before, but unfortunately, this match ended in a time limit draw. So right now, this was going to be a very interesting development because the following day, Kairi will be involved in the main event for the IWGP Women's Championship against Mayu. Now, our next match, this was another interesting one. We have the World of Stardom Championship, aka the Red Belt, between Utami Ayashida and Sudi. Now, keep in mind, last year on December 29 of 2021, it was Sudi who defeated Utami Ayashida for the Red Belt. So this is more of a revenge match. Now, Utami Ayashida did state it. What has Sudi done as a champion? I think the question is, was she a capable champion? Would she be the one to change certain things? Well, that is yet to be seen. But I think that kind of sets the tone. I mean, Utami Ashida has been that person before. But it took a lot of strength and effort between them. But it was, of course, Sudi that picked up the win onto Utami Ishida to retain the title. But however, she called out Julia because right now her main focus at this point is against her. Two former friends, former teammates will clash on the 29th of December. I don't know what they said, but I can tell by the look of it. Julia feels that this is going to be her time to gain the red belt because she feels that maybe Sudi was at the wrong place at the wrong time as champion. But Sudi has to win in order to retain the title because she wants to prove that she is a more capable wrestler and a champion. And I think that's what tells us. But however, we have to move forward with that. We have the finals of the Money Ball tournament. We have stars consistent of Koguma, Azuki, and Mayu Iwatani taking on DDM's Mai Sakurai, Tekla, and Julia. I thought this match was very interesting, but however, it was botched in some ways. Azuki pushed Julia off the rail, but her body hit the money ball with all that money inside, and that kind of opened it up. But however, they have to pull down the ball that was hanging, kind of like what we see with titles being on the line at the top of the ladder. But luckily, Koguma is, she is crazy as hell. She took out all three members of DDM, and they, as for Mayu and Umasaki, Mayu and Azuki, they picked up the win by pulling down the ball, getting all that money that they get. And of course, um, Julia was not happy because, as you know, she was desiring to open up her own wrestling company, but it appears that's not going to happen. But during the post match, Mayu did talk about how she has to main focus, jumping in with good momentum, heading to the Star crossover to take on her old friend Kairi, and whoever's going to walk out as the first ever IWGP Women's Champion. So I think that's pretty much it with Gold Rush. Let's go with the historic crossover. Okay. The New Japan Stardom historic crossover. I thought this was a pretty good event. Let's start with the pre-show matches they have. We have the young lions from both sides, the Japanese one and the LA Dojo. We have Oscar Lebu, who is the newest person, all the way from Germany. He had trained in New Zealand before until the world shut down and had headed back to WXW for the remainder of time until he reappeared again. And he teams up with Yuto Nakashima, Roy Oiwa, and Kosa Fujita. And now we got the guys from the LA Dojo, Kevin Knight, Gabriel Kidd, Alex Coughlin, and Clark Connors. I thought this was also a very interesting matchup because these guys are from two different LA for different dojos within the New Japan system. But wasn't sure how this was going to go. But I was impressed with the double muscle buster by both Coughlin and Gabriel Kidd to pick up the win again when they put up when Oscar was pinned down. So that was a pretty good one. Now our next one, a part of the pre-show, is the Stardom Rando. Many various wrestlers. It opened up with Mirai and Ami Sodi taking on. Then we saw um, members from Stars like Hanan, Saya Ida. Um, who else was in it? Koguma, Azuki, Queen's Quest. Mostly we saw what's her name, Inan and Mai Emiyu Masaki. Odatai, we saw Natsuko Tora, Rina. Who else is in it? Saki Kashima. Kashima did 5 or 6 eliminations, but I think Waka was there too. It was told that was gonna do the English commentary with Kevin Kelly and Chris Charleston. I thought it was pretty interesting developments, but it was Mirai who picked up the win when she was in the last match with super strong Stardom Sheen. So that's kind of interesting. So Mirai picked up the win on that one. Now our opening match of the card, we have Chaos members Leo Rush, who is the newest member, teams up with Yoshihashi, and Tomohiro Ishii to take on all four members of House of Torture. This was a very interesting development, but I can tell you how this ended. It ended with Leo Rush and Yo applying the 3K to uh, Dick Togo and picking up the win. However, they're sending a direct message to Show. As you know, seems to look like a new version of 3K could be in the works, but we'll see when that day comes around. Now, our next match, we have um, DDM consisting of Masakurai, Tekla, and Himika to take on Queen's Quest, Lady C, Azumi, and Saya Kamitani. Uh, on a note here, this is where Wag comes in to do her English commentary. But what I do like about this match is that, once again, the mindset with Saya Kamitani. Will she do another Phoenix Splash or try something else? Because I know there's been a lot of talk about this over and over and over, and I just don't feel like keep continuing on. But I have to say she did a really smart move by applying the Firebird instead. That's the 450 splash. So she did that onto Mai Sakurai to win. And I think maybe now we can see that she's now getting better as a performer. But will she ever do the Phoenix Splash? That's yet to be determined. If she's confident enough to believe she can still do it. Now, our next match, this is one of three intergender mixed tag matches where we have Julia and Zack Sabre Jr. taking on Sudi and Tom Lawler. Now, the reason these combinations took place, if you guys know this, Julia was born in London. She's part Italian, Japanese, something like that. As for Zack, he's British. But Sudi and Tom Lawler have one thing in common, and that common is they were part of the UFC. Tom Lawler's a big fan of God's Eye, and I thought it was a pretty interesting matchup. But I wasn't sure this was going to fall in favor of Tom Lawler because I feel Zack Sabre Jr. has always tricks up his sleeves to pick up the win, and that's exactly what he did. He was the one who picked up the win against Tom Lawler to give him and Julia the first win. Now, our next match is the 8-person tag match. And I think this one was one of my absolute favorites. We have Black Desire, Momo Watanabe, and Starlight Kid teaming up with the members of Suzuki-gun, consistent of Doiki and El Desperado. They take on the other members of Suzuki-gun, Taichi and Yoshinobu Kanemaru, and Meltier, Tam Nakano, and Natsupoi. This was a very good match. Now, Black Desire were trying to prevent them from doing their little entrance, but however, Taichi wasn't going to let them get away with it. The obvious question is, how was this going to be? However, the one thing that did stand out is that Desperado was trying to cross the line to, put his hands on Natsupoi, but Natsupoi was able to hold on her own. But I was like so impressed with how this thing played out. They did jump off. They did that. There was some photos of them doing some interesting things, but I think the one that was crazy is when Momo Watanabe comes out with the bat, taking on what's her name, Tam Nakano. It was Kanemaru and Natsupoi that did the fairy mist onto Momo and Doiki. If you guys don't know what that is the Kanemaru has this where he takes a sip of bottle of whiskey and spits it out of his mouth. Natsupoi had to do the same thing, but it was the Black Mephisto by Taichi to put away Doiki in order to pick up the win. So basically, I thought it was a pretty good match. I have to say, Kevin Kelly did an amazing job with this particular match, and I think I give him props for that. Now, our next match, also part of the of the mixed tag match, we have team number 1, Maika, teaming up with Hiroki Goto, taking on Utami Ishida and the ace, Hiroshi Tanahashi. I thought this was another interesting matchup because Utami and Maika attacked the opposite males of their teams. They Maika punched Tanahashi, Utami with Hiroki Goto. I thought this, like, why not? That sort of thing. I thought it was a pretty good segment, but I was surprised that Maika suplex Tanahashi. I didn't see that, and of course Tanahashi did give her like a slap on the face. but it was the hijack bomb onto Micah once again that gave Utami Ishida the W. So I thought, okay, pretty good. I like it. Now we jump into some other matches. Our first, we have LIJ consisting of Bushi, Hiromu Takahashi, Sanada, and Shingo Takagi and Tetsuya Naito taking on the United Empires, Gideon Gray, Francesco Cara, TJP, and Aussie Open. I thought this match wasn't that good for me because it didn't have that much excitement, but it was, of course, Aussie Open that picked up the win onto Bushi with the Coriolis giving Aussie Open the win. However, Aussie Open is one of those our favorite that could win the World Tag League. We'll just gotta wait and see when that day happens. Naito, once again, up to no good, took Gideon Gray's jacket, and that was sweet. Now we got the other members of the United Empire, Great-O-Khan, Aaron Henare, and Jeff Cobb taking on Chaos's Toru Yano and Kaguchika Okada, and they team up with the Demon, the Great Muta. So I thought this was also another a great match because Muta, this is his last match being in New Japan. Khan, who wants revenge for getting missed by Muta twice, and it failed. I just thought this was a pretty good one, but apparently it took one mistake by Great-O-Khan to miss Jeff Cobb, and it did, as you know, Great-O-Khan missed Khan with the red one, but it did give, of course, the Rainmaker to pick up the win by applying the Rainmaker onto Hinare, gave them the win. Now our next match, this is a championship match. We have the IWGP United States Championship between Shota Umino and Will Ospreay. What a match! I have to say it was a pretty good one. Shooter who still has some issues towards Will Ospreay, but however, it took a Stormbreaker to put away him. And of course, Will Ospreay continued his reign, but once again, his party was crashed by the sudden video appearance of none other than Kenny Omega, who thinks that they made the New Japan made the biggest mistake, tried to put Will Ospreay as the guy who could lead the company, but Will Ospreay does believe he is that. I thought, okay, this is going to be an interesting feud. Now, on a note before the match even started here, if you guys noticed, Will Ospreay had an outfit mate that was from Hayabusa, a wrestler who we known before. Will Ospreay did mention that he asked the daughter for permission. She said yes. So it's kind of interesting to hear that. So yeah. Now our main event, this one is for the IWGP Women's Championship. Who's going to win the first one? Well, that was yet to be seen. This match was out there, balls to the walls. But it was great. It took an insane elbow by Kairi to pick up the win and become the first ever. Now, some people were saying that maybe this would fit for Kairi first. I mean, it would make sense. So I think it was pretty good. This was a very emotional match. But during her promo, as you know, the winner will have to defend that title on January 4th. So the obvious question, who was going to be that person? Well, it turned out to be Tam Nakano. Now, don't get me wrong. She does want this belt. But she did state it months ago, back in May, that if she was going to have a one-on-one match with Kairi, why not with the biggest stage of them all? And I think Wrestle Kingdom is that stage. And I think that's a proper one to have. And I think Kairi would agree. So basically, we'll see that match take place. But however, right in the post-match comments, Kairi was giving her little speech. Suddenly, she saw the arrival of Utami Ishida. Now, she did tell her she's not interested in the belt. She wants a special match. So that match will take place on the 29th of December. So I'll be paying attention to that too. So I think that's pretty much it right now with this. Let's move on with the Unagi Sayaka Watch. And I hope you guys like the intro that I put for this one. I put a lot of effort into it. So let's do that right now. Okay, the Unagi Sayaka Watch. This is a very interesting development. Now, as you know, I've been covering Unagi Sayaka since she made the decision to step into the freelance gig um, after earlier in October. As you know, she's been making appearances in other promotions such as Top Out, Marvelous, and recently she made a stop by to Sendai Girls dojo. As you know, while the historic crossover was happening on that day, well, it didn't happen exactly the same timing, but you know what I mean. Now, prior before this day, we were supposed to have a tag match with Unagi Sayaka and a mystery partner. Now, nobody knows who it was. People were speculating this and that because she was facing against Team 200 kilograms. Apparently, there was no partner, so it ended up in a 2-on-1 type match. Now, you're probably saying, why did no one teamed up with her? I would agree. It was strange. I had this thought in my mind when I saw this. I was like thinking, what if the mystery partner shows up? And fortunately, I was wrong. So it ended with, of course, Team 200 kilogram winning the match. But that wasn't the most interesting part that kind of set it out. Apparently, Yurika Oka was amazed by this match, especially with Unagi taking on two big individuals. I mean, you got Chihiro Hashimoto and you. She was impressed and she was asking for a singles match against her. And Hashimoto did not like what she was hearing. So for some odd reason, this was supposed to be they were going to have another tag match, and that kind of puts it in a very perspective role. But however, they did announce that there's going to be a match with Unagi and Yurika Oka teaming up on the 5th of December at the Shinkiba First Ring, and it's going to be another handicap match, but this time it's Oka and Unagi, Yurika and Unagi taking on Hashimoto. I'm like, ooh, this is going to be interesting. But let's talk a little bit about this. Someone spoke about this recently after the events of Just Tap Out earlier this month, where Arroweye decided to side with Unagi. Someone said this, that no promotion is safe from Unagi. The obvious question is, who's going to side with her? First we saw AOI, now we're seeing this thing with Yurika Oka, and there's a possibility with AI Hosen from Marvelous could be siding with her. I'm like, man, there's a lot of possibilities on this. But we'll just wait and see what takes place. I think that's something we could pay attention. So we'll find out soon enough. But on the notes, because of this particular day, once again, Unagi's merch stand was very long. So basically, she had a long line. I'm not sure if she sold out, but it was kind of interesting to hear. Also, on another note on this, a local podcaster here from my hometown of San Diego, California, he was at the event. He's currently in Japan. He attended various Yoshi promotions, including Stardom. He did say that he met Unagi. I'm not sure. He said they interacted, and I was surprised. I thought it was really cool out of him. Not sure if he's going to talk about it in his podcast, but if you guys are interested, his podcast is the Yoshi Pod. So you may have to find that. So that's what's called, the Yoshi Pod. Now moving on. Something also developed on that very particular day on November 20th, which was yesterday. Well, which is today actually. My bad. So anyway, Unagi appeared this time at Pro Wrestling ZERO1, which was very unusual. But as I said before, she is out trying to get matches against other wrestlers. And to my surprise, she called out Aja Kong. Yes, folks, you heard me right. Aja Kong. I'm like, is she really looking for a death wish with her? I don't know. But however, Aja Kong declined. But Jaguar Yokuda stepped up. That match will take place as well, possibly later on this month. So we'll just wait and see. I'm like saying, wow, she's appearing at different locations out of nowhere. But the whole thing with Sendai Girls, that's a different story. But yeah, so I'm kind of interested with this. So I think that's pretty much it right now with the Unagi Sayaka Watch. I think it's time to call it a day. Well, I hope everybody enjoys this episode. Coming up, as you know, we just began with day one of Super Junior Tag League and World Tag League. I'm excited for that to take place, but also we'll be doing Choco Pro, Jersey Championship Wrestling, and possibly GLEAT. And that's pretty much what I'm going to do. I'm just going to wing it for everyone, see how that rolls out. So, oh yeah, we also got AEW Dark Elevation. Forgot about that. So there's that. If there's any news updates, I will be putting that as well. So I'll see you guys in the next DWZ time. Same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So, goodbye. Mwah. And have a nice day. Bang.